Chapter 169. The Gap Between Master and Friend, 2. Master. I calmly looked at the man standing in front of me. The fact that the heretic questioner wasn't using the word master as a figure of speech was clear just from his smile. This man, who sometimes felt like an innocent child, did not know how to make a joke. I couldn't help but ask. Just so we're clear. Heretic questioner, by saying that you want to take me as your master, does that mean mule? I will obey all of your commands. The heretic questioner responded before I could finish my question. I will kill anyone you tell me to kill. And I will spare anyone you tell me to spare. As I said before, your judgment will be my judgment, and your actions will be my actions. The heretic questioner lifted his hand and placed it on the right side of his chest. Then, he gave a slight bow which reminded me of a butler. I will be your most useful tool. The best part of a good tool is that they have a performance that remains consistent. I don't mean to brag, but I do not believe there is a tool more useful than me when it comes to purging warlords, supervising the internal situation, and keeping the group together. Death King. You will always be able to count on my performance. To put it differently. The heretic questioner was basically saying one thing. I will never change. You can count on me. The heretic questioner said these words with a bright smile. When I saw him being so confident in his own inability to change, my heart ached for some reason. I feel like I've become a mischievous child after regaining my emotions. Because I knew the heretic questioner could change. I think I'm becoming addicted to feeling emotions. Have you always lived with these emotions? I was the only one. The only one who knew a side of him that even the heretic questioner had not experienced. Beneath the white blossoms of the magnolia tree, the heretic questioner muttered. If I had done it like that back then. Or if I had done it like this. I wonder if I still would have lived a wandering life like this, filled with drifting thoughts. This is why you all are so beautiful, and so lovely. If I were like you all. I couldn't forget the words the heretic questioner had spoken at that time. And I could guess the words he'd swallowed at the end. If I could feel emotions like you, I wonder if I could have lived a different life. I could tell because I had met many psychopaths. The boundary that determined whether someone was a psychopath or not was usually connected to a small phrase. If only I could be like you. From the moment he could say those words. For me, it showed he wasn't just a psycho, but a man who had unknowingly ended up living his current life. Name. I opened my mouth. Huh? Your name. Not your title, your real name. The old man's name is Marcus Callenbury, and Venomous Snake's name is Liao Fan. And the Count's real name was Nisha. The Crusader had accidentally called the Count by her real name before. However, since the Count had never told me that directly, I pretended to not know. The Sword Saint and Venomous Snake were the only two people among our group who told me their real names. Heretic questioner. I would like to know your name. The heretic questioner blinked. Is that an order? Can you not tell me your name if it's a request and not an order? That's right. Why? I know. We made a pact with the Black Dragon Master a long time ago. We were abandoned by the outside world. We are strangers who have thrown our nationalities, properties, ties and everything else into the Dead Sea. So let's also throw away the names we received from the outside world. From now on, when we refer to each other, let's use the names given to us by the tower. Indeed. I didn't know they had such a pact. It suddenly occurred to me that I wasn't a part of the original group that came to the tower. The Black Dragon Master has complicated feelings about the outside world. She hates it, despises it even, but still longs for its approval. She's probably the most emotional out of all of us. The heretic questioner tilted his head to the side. In any case, the sword saint withdrew from our group. So he doesn't need to be tied down by our pact. And venomous snake wasn't a part of our pact in the first place. Nevertheless, I value promises. So, Death King, if you really want to know the name I had in the outside world. The heretic questioner narrowed his eyes slightly. Please order me to tell you. I will obey you. I could tell. This wasn't a question of whether he wanted to say his name or not. It meant that he would prioritize my orders over his pact with the original members. It was a pledge of his loyalty towards me. Can I take responsibility? I thought about it. Could I give this person a different life? Could a psychopath really be put in charge of another psychopath? I had the desire. And I had the greed. However, was I capable enough? I looked at the heretic questioner. Without saying a word, the heretic questioner simply waited for my response. I had the opportunity to reform the heretic questioner in Tales of Somruin Academy. But I failed. I missed the chance. I was so focused on doing my best to help Raviel that I didn't even pay attention to this child. If only I had one more chance. At that moment, I was wondering if I could provide a better life for the heretic questioner. I can do it. I found my answer. I want to do it. I nodded. Yes. Although the second chance hadn't come around yet. For the time being, I would take care of this child in front of me. Tell me your name. The heretic questioner chuckled. My real name is Bambolina. His laughter caused his blonde hair to bounce. Strictly speaking, it's hard to call that my real name. It would be better to say it was a nickname. Nickname. I was raised by the mafia as a child. The mafiosos always called me Baby Doll, and that's where the name comes from. Bambolina means doll. I was also called Kikna. The heretic questioner smiled brightly. The organization that imprisoned me was based in Bulgaria. It was a very large organization with many branches that stretched in different directions. I was trained to be used in the business of one of those branches. The reason you're using past tense is because they don't exist on Earth anymore. The heretic questioner smiled gently and took out a small lock from his pocket. Like a coin spinning trick, the lock bounced around the fingers of his left hand. I was held captive for 11 years. Usually, after training, I would lay on my bed and wonder. If I can open the lock on the door to my room, is there a reason to not open it? Click. With a soft sound, the lock in the heretic questioner's hand opened. But after thinking about it, I realized there was none. So he escaped. I couldn't find a reason to not kill the person watching over me. And I also couldn't find a reason to not kill the boss too. There were people who wouldn't do things without a reason, and there were people who would do things without a reason. The heretic questioner was definitely the latter. Because of that, there was a feud between the 2 high-ranking officers and the 4 lower ones. I also manipulated the scene a bit so that their suspicions could grow. Half a year later, they seemed to have begun to suspect that it was actually my fault, but ahaha. By that time, half of the organization had already been destroyed. The mafia's baby doll then entered the tower. And the tower had acquired a terrifyingly capable beast. Why do you want me to be your master? The first reason is, of course, because the Death King is more competent than I am. The heretic questioner paused for a moment after saying that. The second reason is because I started hesitating. Hesitating? Yes. How can I say it so you can understand? The heretic questioner furrowed his eyebrows as if he didn't know what to say, a rare phenomenon. After we cleared Tales of Somruin Academy, I felt a bit strange. Even if I punished terrorists as usual, I couldn't execute them as quickly as before. To others, there might only be a 1-second difference, but for me, that 1-second difference was strange. The heretic questioner was deep in thought. Because in that 1 second, I seemed to recall the scenes in the Somruin Academy that I shared with the Death King. Is that weird? No. It wasn't weird at all. Instead, I was just surprised. The influence is still there. The route where the heretic questioner had been completely enamored with the Lady of Golden Silk had disappeared. It was gone. However, even in the new route that I took, the heretic questioner must have felt some feelings for the Lady of Golden Silk, albeit slightly. Even if the immersion rate was less than 10%. No, even if it was only 1%. The baby doll must have experienced emotion. Death King. You are the reason for my hesitation. The heretic questioner continued. You took away 1 second of my life. It was my first time experiencing something like that. If it's you, I feel like that 1 second might become 1 minute, or even 1 hour. The heretic questioner smiled brightly. I understand now. Perhaps this is what humans call hope. Maybe people are always waiting to find someone else who takes up their time. So in that sense, you are my hope. The fact that you can take away my time doesn't make it less. Yes. Somehow, without fully understanding why, I understand this. The heretic questioner stretched his hand towards me, and on it was a small rusty lock. It will just add your rhythm to my melody. My monophony 1. I can barely imagine your tune blending with my monotonous humming. I took the lock. Because of you, it might be possible for me to become music, Death King. Even people like me. The heretic questioner smiled. Can I use you as my hope? I felt heavy. I was afraid. There was only a slight difference between heaviness and fear, so it was possible that I was just afraid of carrying the weight of the heretic questioner on my back, too. I thought of the weight of Preta. I thought of the weight of the cult members and Sylvia Evanale. I thought about the weight of the Constellation Killer. I thought about the weight of the goblins. And finally, I wondered if I could handle the weight of another person. Yes. The heretic questioner was my companion. I will be your hope. It didn't matter if the heretic questioner was a beast. Humans were also beasts who envied others. This child and I were on the road to becoming humans. Without my permission, I ordered. Don't kill anyone. Yes. Without my permission, don't torture anyone. Yes. And without my permission, don't lock anyone up. Understood. Please tell me if you have any concerns. I will always listen to you without judging you. I won't even look at you strangely. I'll always try to think from your perspective, Bambolina. Please think of me as someone like you. The heretic questioner put his hands in front of his chest. It felt like he was saying a prayer. Yes. You are more capable than I am. Since you are my hope, I will work hard for you. 4th ranked. 10,000 Temple Master. The baby doll swore allegiance to me. I was eliminated on this stage, so I can't accompany you to the 33rd floor. Even this is only a temporarily arranged meeting I got after asking the lady who walks through the mirage. It will soon end. I'll keep the Death King's orders in mind when I return to Babylon. Yes. I stroked the heretic questioner's head. Please take care of the house. Mr. Pseudo-Sect Leader. Ahaha. The heretic questioner laughed. I will heed your orders. Gongja. With those words, the heretic questioner's figure faded. The heretic questioner failed to complete the quest. The heretic questioner has been eliminated from this stage. And in the next moment, my other companions appeared around me. Sword Saint. Black Dragon Master. Count. Venomous Snake. Crusader. This group, who had successfully completed the quest, all looked at me in confusion. Have you been here for a long time after you declared stage clear? The Black Dragon Master responded. Death King. You were the first one to declare clear. Where have you been? I smiled. I was just saying
goodbye
to the heretic questioner. The path we took was by no means meaningless. Even if we couldn't say it or see it, someone, somewhere, was being influenced by us. Holding the lock tightly in my hand, I said. Everyone worked hard. Let's head to the next stage. Chapter 170. The Gap Between Master and Friend, 3. Everyone got together and talked about the stage we attacked, the 32nd floor. We talked about our escape from Remepolis. And about how we evaded our pursuers. Of course, we also talked about someone behind his back. We have to do something about that dog heretic questioner. As if fed up, the Black Dragon Master spoke in an angry voice. I don't know what he was thinking. No, I do know. And that makes me even angrier. He doesn't usually do things like that. Well. That bastard is far from normal. Venomous Snake spoke in a resentful tone. His expression also wasn't good. After learning that the heretic questioner had ruled on his own for 200 years, Venomous Snakes looked like he'd eaten dog.
Shh.
*T. He's always been like that. There's no way he'd change now. There's something more important than that. I finally opened my mouth. It's our reward. Guys. Huh? Reward? Right. You didn't get your reward for clearing the 31st floor, did you? The tower said that we would receive our reward for the 31st floor on the 32nd floor, but on the 32nd floor they said we'd get our reward on the 33rd floor. Our rewards keep getting pushed back. The Count touched the tip of her chin with her fan. Her eyes shined slightly. Among all the top rankers, the Count was probably the most perceptive when it came to money and rewards. That's indeed the case. As far as I know, the tower has never owed a hunter before. I wonder if they are deferring it because they have nothing to give. Huh. That's impossible. The lady who walks through the mirage. Pop. The lady appeared with a ridiculous sound effect. But the sound wasn't the thing that stood out the most. Instead, it was the fact that the lady stuck her head up from the ground like a mole rat. Venomous Snake, who was beside her, jumped. What the hell? That scared me. Sorry. I was late because I had to do something upstairs.
Ugh.
It's really annoying to deal with talented people. It's so much better to just have average skills. The lady hurriedly climbed out of the hole in the ground. And after she'd fully extracted herself, the floor returned to its smooth, white appearance. Do something, upstairs? After all, I am a high-ranking person. I have to participate in managing the tower. Anyways, are you talking about the rewards? The lady spoke as she brushed off her knees. It's not that we're being stingy with your rewards. We were just going to combine them and give you a big reward when you clear the 40th floor. The Count lifted an eyebrow with a "Ho?" So you're saying you intend to give us the rewards for 10 floors all at once? There's a reason for that. You'll find out later. The lady turned to look at me. The constellation was smiling. I think some of you already have an idea of what it might be. But it would be too much of a pity if I stick to secrecy too much. How about this? Although I can't give you your stage clear reward yet, I can give you something. Ahem. I have at least that much discretionary power. The lady puffed up her chest proudly. Let's see. If I split up and distribute the points Herediki had, that's it. Ring. A message appeared in front of us. The lady who walks through the mirage has allocated points. You have received 9,160 race points. You currently have 9,160 race points. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. What? The Black Dragon Master muttered in a low voice. Hey. Did you give me the wrong amount? 10,000 points? Our entire group was stunned. Did she give more than intended? I was shocked as well. Looking at the Black Dragon Master's reaction, and everyone else, it seemed that we all had received 9,160 race points. It's right. The lady confirmed in a calm tone. I'm not doing you guys a favor or anything. Herediki got knocked out. I just split the points he had by January 6th. It's a rule to give preferential treatment to the winners. Wait a minute. You're saying the heretic questioner had 60,000 points? 54,964 to be exact. There were 4 points left after the even split, so I just gave those to the sortie. Think of it as consideration for the number one. We were all speechless. What's wrong? The lady tilted her head to the side. Herediki controlled the floor for 200 years, 6 months and 21 days all on his own. It's natural for him to have accumulated that many points. All said and done, you should be happy. The lady clapped her hands. It's time to get started on the 33rd floor. Is there anyone who wants to use their points in advance before I speed up time in that world? The Sword Saint raised his hand. I have a question. Sortie. Say it. What do you mean by in advance? Exactly that. That world is still out there. Cool. It's really annoying to talk about it since it doesn't have a name. In any case, the world that your races reside in is currently in stasis. Should I say it's paused? If you buy items now, they will have an impact on the future. The lady wagged her index finger. Then purple letters appeared in the air. Plus. The invention of bronze-grade technology, draw 1,000 points. The invention of silver-grade technology, draw 3,000 points. The invention of platinum-grade technology, draw 6,000 points. Plus. If you were to pick any of these items now, they would be reflected in history and appear in the next stage. Although there is the disadvantage of not being able to control history in real time, from your perspective, these items would still be very beneficial to you, wouldn't they? Indeed. The Sword Saint stroked his beard. Even if we can't manipulate history, we would still be able to alter its flow to an extent. Last time, we skipped the stage without having this opportunity. Dash. I guess I owe you guys an apology since Herediki did that to you. The lady sighed. Herediki took advantage of a loophole in the system. It's my fault for exposing the loophole in the first place. Seriously, like the Death King, he doesn't leave the system alone. While the lady grumbled under her breath, everyone slowly became lost in the civilization store as we decided what items to choose. As I looked from the lady to my companions, I couldn't help but ponder. She brushed over talking about the stage rewards. My companions didn't seem to notice anything strange, but, having experienced the future, I knew. The fact that they were deferring our rewards was a kind of hint. As soon as I started mentioning it, the lady appeared and changed the subject. I was naturally going to give a clue to my companions. Is the lady intentionally restraining me? My eyes met the constellations. The lady smiled and waved. There was no animosity on the constellation's face, but I couldn't figure out her inner thoughts either. The lady who walks through the mirage asks for your understanding. My understanding? Well. I looked at the lady and silently nodded. If I tell them everything from beginning to end, I'll take away their opportunity to grow. Until now, I had guided my companions using the knowledge I gained before my regression. It was a privilege of knowing the future. But that privilege would soon expire. The Flame Emperor only cleared up to the 40th stage. Beyond that was an unknown area. I knew the concept of the 40th to 49th floors. I also knew that the 50th floor was a world shared by all towers. But that was it. I had no knowledge from the 51st floor onwards. At that time, it would be hard to move with subordinates who only knew how to do as they were told. I need companions who can fill in the parts one didn't even think about, and defend the points I can't. Taking everything for yourself and keeping everything to yourself. Eating alone is as harmful as poisoning oneself, too. It might be useful to deal with the difficulties right now, but in the end, it would eat away at our tower's power. I can't follow.
Yo. So? Ha!
S footsteps. I accepted the lady's intentions. I'll leave my colleagues to realize the truth on their own. They're all people who suffered like me, and they're all way cooler than me. They'll definitely figure it out in time. The question now is, where should I invest my points? I looked closely at the civilization store. In fact, it didn't take me long to decide on what item to buy. There's a reason that I invested so much of my spare time on the 32nd floor. I read the item's description. Plus. Race evolution. Rank, undetermined. Effect, certain races have the capacity to evolve. But in a world where magic power exists, the ecosystem is very complex, and because of this, evolutions can sometimes be quite dramatic. Aura is the ability to materialize will, and changing according to one's will is much faster than evolution through natural selection. There is no guarantee that the direction of the evolution will be a good one. It's possible for a race to rely on the wrong thing. A race that relies on destruction might evolve into a race wholly focused on slaughter, and a race that relies on seclusion might choose to completely isolate themselves from the world. Please choose carefully. Price, 8,900 race points. The current investment has been calculated to 1,100 points. Unlock conditions. Your race must have at least 3 traits. The goblin race satisfies the evolution conditions. Plus. I originally invested because I thought it would be possible to obtain this on the 34th floor. There was a twinkle in my eye. But I can buy it now. Race evolution. This was the reason why goblins were able to fight against the high elf civilization the Flame Emperor had created. Before I returned, the Flame Emperor chose the distinguished elf race. The elves had innate talents for aura and magic, so they were able to progress quickly under the Flame Emperor's guidance. But in the end, the goblins were the ones that made the elves lower their heads in defeat. To be precise, it was the goblin race's final evolution. Ha! Beihurayong made a sound to match his blank expression. What the hell? Did something like that really happen? Of course. Do you think I chose the goblins for no reason? I thought it was because you felt they resembled you, so you felt pity. I did feel it. I do feel it. But I told you, didn't I? They will soar one day. I really meant that the goblins will soar. You were serious. TCH. I wouldn't lie about that. Your whole life is a lie. You soothsaying bastard. Those were just white lies. Milady. I'd like to buy this. I pointed at Race Evolution as I said that. My other colleagues couldn't see it, but the constellation could definitely see the hologram in front of me since she let out a soft sound. Death King, you should really use your points more wisely. Isn't that a waste? With that much, you could buy several, the invention of bronze-grade technology, or nation-grade General S. No. No matter how much technology was invented, it was meaningless if they couldn't use it well. Even if an outstanding talent did appear, it would also be meaningless if they failed to succeed because of jealousy or envy. On the other hand, race evolution was something that the entire race could enjoy. I'll stick with this one. You won't regret it? I won't. Why do you keep asking? Do you really want me to pick something else? This is why cheat players. The lady let out a soft sigh. Thank you for your purchase. Clink, a sound effect like coins falling filled the air. Purchased Race Evolution. 8,900 points have been deducted. You currently have 206 race points. Okay. The item was activated immediately. An upheaval of times. The goblin race is evolving. The status of the goblin race will change. You won't be able to see the evolution of the goblin race until you enter the next stage. I smiled happily. Okay. There's just one more step before they can achieve their final evolution. I'm growing closer to my goal. The day would soon come when the goblins stood tall as the masters of the world.
Ah.
The time is approaching when the shouts of Kirk would come from every corner of the world. A fire has been lit in my cold, lonely heart, and it's slowly beginning to pound. Crazy bastard. The others also made their purchases. Some spent all their points, some saved for the future. Even though the points had been distributed easily, there were still many variations. Is that everything? Nothing else? The lady looked around before nodding. Good. You better not regret it. From now on, the history of this world will change. How many years will it be this time?
Ha.
The lady blinked. A lot more time passed than last time. It's been 660 years since the fall of Remepolis. 660 years. Compared to when the heretic questioner had forced the progress along, the years had flown by. The losers of the last era, the snails. How unfortunate. What happened to the snails? Well, go in and you'll see for yourself. The lady who walks through the mirage spread her arms wide. I'll open the 33rd floor now. Pot. The light we had grown accustomed to blinded our eyes for a moment. The sensation of my brain juices swirling around in my head was a bit more bearable now.
Oh.
The next moment. Sounds that seemed to shake the heavens hit our eardrums like a truck. Kill them. Cut off all of those dirty snails' tentacles. Charge. Charge. Don't allow the enemy to get away. Stick to them till the end. We found ourselves on a battlefield. Chapter 171. Fight for the Holy Land, 1. There were people who compared the sight of people losing their lives in war to flowers blooming beautifully. But I'm certain that those people have never been on the battlefield before.
Oh.
Push the gate. Push it down. KRRNG, KRRK. Countless sounds rushed into our ears like the buzzing of mosquitoes. Crack! Right beside us, a huge axe crushed an armored soldier. The sound of flesh splitting. The screech of iron breaking. The moans and groans of the injured. On this battlefield, lives were extinguished like popping bubbles in a hot swamp. Wait a minute. What's going on? The Black Dragon Master spoke with a shocked expression. She wasn't shocked because of the cruelty of the battlefield. She was shocked by the fact that we'd suddenly appeared in the center of one. "Milady, what's going?" "She's gone." "Did a quest window pop up for anyone?" "It didn't." "Same here." "How unkind." The Black Dragon Master clicked her tongue. Is she telling us to figure out this situation on our own? Although his personality was a bit strange, the librarian was a kind constellation.
Ha!
"Everyone, let's fly up and check this war situation from the air." "That should be better." Tot, the Black Dragon Master tapped on the ground with her foot. "Huh?" However, her body didn't fly into the air. The Black Dragon Master furrowed her eyebrows in confusion. "What's going on? I can't fly?" It was as she said. We were able to fly freely on the 31st and 32nd floors. This made it possible for us to observe everything from a bird's eye view. Maybe you could say it felt like we had transcended. The real fight starts now. I understood the meaning behind this surprising situation. Rather, this is pretty good. Regardless of whether it's a skill or an ability, if you grow too reliant on it, your skill as a hunter would deteriorate. Even if there are any accidents, in the worst case, I'll just go back in time. I looked around. Currently, we were still invisible like before. The body parts and blood that flew through the air passed freely through our bodies. Naturally, it wasn't a pleasant experience to have someone's bloodied organs flying through our bodies, but it's not just one or two races participating in this battle. If we focused, it was easy for us to observe what was happening around us. The humans, elves, sprites, it's a multi-race alliance. They seem to be fighting against each other, but they also seem to be on the same side. Each race is in charge of a different army branch. The humans form a shield wall and take the position of infantry, while the elves are the archers, and the sprites are the cavalry. I narrowed my eyes. The vampires are acting as aerial units. I can't see the mermaids, but it seems that all the races that were once enslaved by the snails are a part of this allied army. Then the enemy. Yes. I nodded. There's a 9 out of 10 chance that it's the snails. Yuh. The allied army gradually pushed forward little by little. It was difficult to understand exactly how the battle was progressing because we were surrounded by soldiers, but we could tell that the situation was gradually changing. This won't do. If we stay here, we'll see nothing but corpses. The Black Dragon Master grabbed my hand. I'll go scout with the Death King. It'll be hard to gather together if we all scatter, so you guys wait here. Is that fine with you, Death King? I realized what the Black Dragon Master wanted to do. Space transfer technique. The Black Dragon Master intended to scout using her special skill. This skill allowed her to transfer not only herself, but another party. The only limitation was that the other party had to agree to use the skill. Yes. Good. Black aura leaked from the Black Dragon Master's body and latched onto my wrist. Transfer. The next moment, we were in the air, looking down at the thousands of soldiers that crawled beneath us like a swarm of insects. When we began to be dragged down by gravity, the Black Dragon Master used her skill again. Transfer. And we stopped falling for a while. You don't intend to use space transfer every time we're about to fall, do you? We can't fly, so I don't have a choice. Transfer. During my long career as a hunter, what I realized was, a skill is like a muscle, the more you use it, the easier it is. Transfer. Wow, that's really not cool. Can being cool feed you? Transfer. I'm busy using my skill, so pay attention to the situation on the ground. Sure. I quickly achieved a state of empty mind, and carefully observed the war below. I was immediately struck by a sense of déjà vu. This place seems familiar. Right. I also felt like this place is familiar for some reason. This isn't a civil war, it's a siege. As we expected, the ones fighting the snails were the ones fighting the Allied forces. The snails had set up a fortified camp at the entrance of a large cave which seemed to only have a wall and a gate. Isn't that Remepolis? The city where the historic slave escape had occurred. Now, the races that were no longer slaves were attacking. They called it the Holy Land. The Sword Saint said. We all shared the information we collected. I heard the conversation of some soldiers in the humans' barracks. They said that they will definitely take the Holy Land in this expedition. Judging from the fact that they said this expedition, I don't think this is the first time they've attacked Remepolis. From what I've heard, this is the 6th expedition. The venomous snake raised his hand. The Alliance army was formed hundreds of years ago to deal with the Rime Empire. Most of the empire has already been destroyed, and I heard that Remepolis is the only base that has yet to fall. Holy Land. Another annoying phrase. The Black Dragon Master pressed her palm to her forehead, her expression sour. If I had to pick the 3 words I hate to hear the most in the world, they would be terror, Holy Land, and heretic. In the early days in the tower, all kinds of heretics went around screaming, "The tower is the Holy Land. It is the Tower of Babel that God gave to us." It was the Church of Neo-Babylonians. The crusader folded her arms. In all honesty, they were just weaklings. I remembered the heretics going crazy and screaming, "This place is Ruaya 1. I tilted my head to the side. Ruaya? What's that? I don't know the details either. Something about a city that appeared in a novel, but sank into the Pacific Ocean. The tower isn't in the Pacific Ocean, is it? The tower was everywhere and nowhere. To put it simply, the tower that was seen from the outside world was more like a miracle. Regardless of where you were, you would be able to see the shadow of the tower on the horizon. Regardless of whether you were in Seoul or Busan, Korea or Chile, you could see the tower anytime, anywhere. As if it was seducing you to run to it. There are heretics who truly believe the novel. Don't expect them to think logically. Just so you know, many of those heretics are still active in the 10,000 Temple. Is that really okay? They're all psychopaths. Now you understand why we entrust the 10,000 Temple to the heretic questioner. Death King. The only one who can rule over crazy people is someone crazier than them. Indeed. The 10,000 Temple was more impressive than I thought. The Black Dragon Master sighed. The most efficient method was to leave all of those issues to the heretic questioner. I'm sure we suffered a loss by doing this. But in the end, they were useful, but unnecessary. The battle paused for a while. The battlefield, which was extremely fierce during the day, became quiet as the sun began to set. As a cool night breeze blew over, the multi-race alliance began to prepare their dinner. How could a place like this be considered a holy land? It's only natural for it to be considered a holy land. I concluded. This is the land where all the guardian deities of the 7 races descended. It wouldn't make sense if they didn't regard this place as a holy land. From the snails to the humans, mermaids, sprites, and elves. This is a holy land for every race. The sword saint nodded. The snails are trying to defend this place, and the other races are trying to capture it. More importantly, this is the only city that remains of the empire. This makes it difficult for either side to back down. The multi-race alliance had a history of being oppressed as slaves by the snails. So faith, resentment, and politics were all mixed. This was something that could not be solved easily.
Ugh.
The Black Dragon Master groaned. It's strange. I knew something like this would happen, so I constantly reminded those vampire kids. There is no God in this world, and even if there is a God, it's not me. Did they forget my teachings? I did something similar. The Black Dragon Master's words caught my attention. What did you spend your points on, Black Dragon Master? Race evolution. I was almost certain the Black Dragon Master would act like a squirrel and save all her points. You made a big investment. I'm surprised. The Black Dragon Master stared at my face with a dumbfounded expression before letting out a sigh. I overheard what item you were going to pick. I said I decided to follow your choice. I'm not sure about it, but you chose it. I figured it must be a good item, so I chose the same thing. But aren't you copying me too much? So noisy. There's nothing wrong with using other people for reference. Wow, I admire your shamelessness. Vampires are basically intelligent bats. I wonder how they changed after they evolved. I don't know. Maybe they'll only change a bit?
Shh.
The Crusader raised her hand and pointed to one side of the military camp. It's getting noisy over there. We shut up immediately. As the Crusader said, there was a commotion in the Allied army's camp. The soldiers, who were happily eating their dinner, quickly swallowed the rest of their bread before rushing over. Let's go too. We quickly gathered around the Black Dragon Master as she prepared to transfer. I feel like I've suddenly become a mama pig, although she complained, she knew this was the fastest method. The entrance of the military camp. Hundreds of warriors were lined up here. They were warriors of a race that didn't look like the mermaids, vampires, humans, sprites or elves. The commander of the humans called out. Warriors of the wetlands. What brings you here? We are allies who made a sacred pact of past resentment. Do not invade this place with swords and spears. Ugr. The leader of the warriors bowed his head slightly. I am Jerkisa, a great warrior ranked 73rd in the Fire River Council and the leader of this expedition. My ancestors are the ones who dug up rock salt in Remepolis. You can rest assured, our swords have not yet been pointed at you. They were goblins. Riding atop a lion, the leader of the group approached the Allied camp. Expedition? The people of the wetlands declared that they would not participate in this war. We said that we would not join your expedition. The goblin warrior spoke calmly. Although a bit late, the council has decided to participate in this war. What did you say? War? Ugr. As one of the nobles representing the council, I came to inform you of this decision. Let it be known that we have no intention of betraying or surprising you. It was at that moment that I really felt that 600 years had passed. Their way of talking has become very sophisticated. Even in the previous stage, the unique pronunciations of the goblins remained the same. At the end of each sentence, they often said words like gork. However, there were barely any traces of that in the warrior's speech. The pronunciation also became a bit fuller as gore became closer to ugr. No. Is the way they talk really the problem here? Bei Hurayong muttered from behind me. These guys have really grown a lot. He was right. The goblins, who used to be as tall as dwarves, had nearly doubled in size. Now, they were as tall as or even taller than the humans. Race evolution worked well. They were larger than humans but smaller than orcs. KRRR. He even rode on a lion that was larger than him. The lion sniffed and glared at the human commander, causing him to take a step back. Don't worry. The goblin patted the lion's mane. This child is a good friend. Relax. No, what do you mean by participating in a war? Do you mean that you intend to take the side of the snails and fight against our expedition? Make it clear. Are you the envoy who has come to declare war? I swear on the names of Kekrikar and Gork. I am not. Even if he swore on Kekrikar, did he have to swear on Gork too? Little brat. It seems he became really successful. We are only here in the name of God to prevent evil crimes from being committed. Crimes? Evil crimes? That's right. You are all making a mistake. The guardian gods never wanted us to destroy the snail race. In the era of the Great Escape, the guardians turned away from us when we tried to retaliate against the snails. The meaning of that is clear. The goblin smiled fiercely. A war beyond this is no longer honorable, nor is it sacred. Just as it was wrong of the snails to whip us like that, it is also wrong of us to destroy the snails' last sanctuary. What? In other words, the vengeance for those who were bound in chains has already been dealt with. The great warrior of the goblin race continued. Stop the fighting. We are here to end this old war. Chapter 172. Fight for the Holy Land, 2. The Allied army started to make a fuss. End the old war. They don't want to destroy the snails. And it wasn't a good fuss. Instead, the commanders of the other races, who were listening at the side, all began to vent their anger towards the goblins. That means they're siding with the slavers. That's a bunch of bullsh*t. That's probably why they were hesitating to participate in the war. They probably waited until both armies were weak and tired before coming to make their move. It's possible that the snails asked them for help. Aren't you guys ashamed to face the spirits of your ancestors? Criticism poured in like a flood. But the goblin warriors didn't even bat an eyelid. It doesn't matter what you say. We have boldly revealed our intentions. The Fire River Council held 12 small meetings and 6 large ones. And our consensus at the end was that this war, which will lead to the extinction of the snails, goes beyond simple revenge. Traitors! You should put chains around your ankles again. Wait a minute. Flap! Hundreds of bats, who were hanging from the fence that was built around the camp, spread their wings. Then, one of them flew down and transformed into a humanoid form. A vampire wearing a dark cloak. That was the evolutionary form of the blood-sucking race. I am Carrion of the Blood Forest. Commander of 1,600 elite soldiers. My ancestors lived on the roof of Remepolis, and my grandfather and grandmother were great warriors in the last expedition. The Black Dragon Master shook. Although she'd expected it to an extent, the evolution of her own race took her by surprise. Warriors of the Wetlands. You were the first to escape Remepolis in the era of the Great Escape. You were the first to pick up your stone axes, but when we had the chance to destroy the snails once and for all, you turned your backs. A noble of the blood-sucking race, a blood-sucking noble, bared his fangs. According to the legends, the snail pursuers also let you go for some reason. I can't help but feel suspicious. You, who refused to participate in any of the expeditions, have now appeared before us and cried for the war to stop. Why does it feel like you made a secret pact with the snails a long time ago? It has been more than half a millennium since that time. It was thanks to the achievements of Kekrikar and his Apostle Gork that we defeated the snail's pursuit. The Apostle Gork climbed onto the back of Kekrikar and defeated 13 snail warriors in a row in one-on-one combat. Hey! Our Gork was appointed as an apostle? For some reason, I felt happy and sad. He was a kid who called me a demon and said he didn't want to get hit by me. But now he has left his name in history. Impressed by their ability, the commander of the snails retreated with his army. How impressive! The vampire sneered. The honorable duel of the noble prophet and the admiration of his adversary. That is indeed a heroic tale that can be sung in legends. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like that was more like a pact between two sides rather than impressing the enemy. The expression of the goblin commander changed slightly. It was by no means an honorable duel. Kekrikar has a cruel and vicious side. He forced Gork, who didn't want to fight, to participate. The Apostle Gork made a request to us even upon death. Kekrikar is not our god. Instead, he is a friend who wants to help us. But because he has a dirty mouth and a foul temper, he's not a friend you should keep close. That's right. To put it simply, Kekrikar is a bad friend. How can you call your god a bad friend? That's blasphemy. The human commander shouted loudly. However, the solemn expression of the great warrior dispatched by the goblins didn't change. That's what the lore says. The names that are used to refer to Kekrikar are Foul-Mouthed Lion, the one who loves to hit with their hands, and Believer of Education Through Violence. The other hunters slowly turned to look at me. I could tell from their expressions, their gazes. It was like they were all suspicious of me and were inwardly criticizing me. It had been a long time since I'd received these kinds of gazes from my companions. Death King. The Black Dragon Master opened her mouth. You. I didn't think you were that kind of person. Have you been beating up these children when we weren't looking? I'm shocked. To be honest, I'm very shocked. It's said that a person's true self is revealed when they become parents and have to raise children. The Crusader looked at me with a sharp gaze. How bad were you to the goblins to have lore like that passed down? Death King. How many times did you hit that goblin's small boy? I hope you reflect. No. Wait a minute. Stop. Hold on. I waved my hands violently from side to side. It's not like that. I'm not violent. You know that. Well. You had to do something right. Otherwise, such words wouldn't have been passed down. I did hit him. But I did it while using the dream possession item. It was in the item. The item. No matter how much he got hit in the dream, he wouldn't get any injuries. So I used the quickest method to teach him aura. Oh my god. Did you try to kill the goblin in its dreams? The Crusader asked with wide eyes. My other companions also murmured softly. Leaving no injuries on his body is different from mental scarring. Mental injuries could be many times more serious. Moreover, education through violence. Foul-mouthed lion. The one who loves to hit with their hands. Believer of education through violence. No, wait a minute. Seriously, that makes me sound bad, but it wasn't like that. I can't tell you exactly how it was, but I assure you it wasn't that bad. Really? I was just making sure the little blinnies didn't lose their culture. You have to believe me. Typical self-explanation. Just like in domestic violence cases. My reputation. My image was being tainted. My precious image that I could be relied on at any time, anywhere, and that I was reliable, kind, and competent. Hey! Who are you talking about? Me, of course. You really are a crazy bastard. While my image was being shattered, the leaders of the Allied army were also looking at the goblin great warrior in shock. It's well known that the descendants of the rock salt miners have gone crazy. How could they treat their god like that? Are they out of their minds? As expected, we can't mix with these weirdos. Well, it seemed the goblins also had a strange image. That wasn't my fault, was it? No. I don't think. Maybe? Ugher. The goblin great warrior sighed. We have conveyed the intentions of the council. I do not care if you accept us or not. However, keep in mind that we are here to end this war. Whether it's the snail race or another race, we will not sit back and watch them be annihilated. Ho! Do you think you can do whatever you want? We always do whatever we want. After saying those words, the goblin turned his lion around. Keep in mind. We are just the vanguard. The chairman of the council is directly leading the main unit. The rain-drinking lions and the fire-loving warriors are all on their way. You ought to be afraid. Then he said to his subordinates. Let's go. The goblin warriors moved as one, leaving the Allied army with frustrated expressions. If they wanted to stop them, they would have to fight, but there would be no benefit fighting forces that were neither allies nor enemies. The Allied army could only furrow their brows as they watched the goblins who were doing this and that. No. Then. Those guys. As they looked at the goblins, the Allied army suddenly erupted. Even their leaders were shocked. They're building a camp there? In the place between the camps of the Allied army and the snails. The goblin warriors settled down in a place that would allow them to reach either side in an instant. Ugh. The viscosity of the dirt here is not bad. It's just sticky enough. I'm tired from marching. Do my back for me. A stream flowed through the plains, and beside it were roughly 400 goblins kneading the mud on its banks. They pressed the mud to each other's backs and carved intricate patterns on their bodies. It was a leisurely and relaxed scene similar to that of a group on vacation. One would never have expected to see such a scene on the battlefield. Those who didn't know anything might think they were just there to hang out. How shameless. Somehow, I feel like this is familiar. I feel like I've seen this somewhere before. The hunters beside me began to look back and forth between me and the goblins. I couldn't tell why. I've done nothing but good things for those kids. Move as soon as you pick a number. After their bath, 2 goblin warriors left the camp. One faced the Allied army. The other faced the snails. Only 2 warriors stood, blocking the paths of 2 armies. Ugher. The goblin warrior looked at the Allied army while holding a great sword. It was as though he was telling them they would have to get past him to go forward. Those. Realizing the meaning behind his action and gaze, the leaders of the Allied army were indignant. Those rude bastards. Do they really think we wouldn't dare to fight them one-on-one? The goblins are always like that. They talk like nobles, but their actions are barbaric. We are the knights who are upholding the holy will of the guardians. How dare these noisy mongrels who mock their god block our way? Send fighters. Sending one of our fighters is more than enough. Soon after, an elf fighter got onto a white horse and stepped out. Mold bastard. I will bury your smelly corpse in the ground today. When he saw the elf standing before him, the goblin warrior called out. My name is Mormu. Descendant of Kakrker and the great warrior Gorger of the Great Escape. I'm ranked 631st among the warriors of the Fiver River Council. What is your name? I don't need to tell you my na. At that moment, the goblin warrior threw his great sword. The huge sword flew through the air like a windmill. Me? Shocked, the elf barely managed to raise his twin swords in time. Clang! With an explosive sound, the fairy was sent flying. He had blocked the blade, but the force of the attack was so great that he couldn't negate its momentum. Cough. Unable to even perform a proper landing, the elf let out a cough before trying to get to his feet. However, the goblin was already approaching while riding on his lion. The lion stepped on the elf's shoulders with its front paws. Not revealing your name and that of your ancestors shows that you lack etiquette. Ugger. Puk. The goblin then controlled his lion to step on the elf's head. After the head of the elf disappeared, the lion swiped its paw across the ground before letting out a roar. The duel had ended in an instant. Nay. The white horse, which had lost its owner, cried out and pitifully ran to the other side of the plain. Or at least it tried to. Nay? One of the goblin soldiers suddenly threw a spear into the horse's chest. The plains instantly became quiet. The goblin then rushed to the horse and dragged it back. When the allied army stared at them with blank expressions, the goblin realized they had done something embarrassing and bowed their heads politely. Sorry. I'm a bit hungry. I thought it would be a waste to just let it run away like that. Meat is precious. Or at least, that's what I think. Go back to fighting. And with that, he leisurely returned to the goblin camp. He had been perfectly polite when he bowed his head. The allied army found it hard to close their mouths. That cheap bastard. I never thought there was such an ignorant bastard in the world. He threw his sword in an honorable duel. Is that what you call a warrior? If you think it's unfair, throw your swords too. Ugger. The warrior who killed the elf scrunched his nose. And we've always been like this. What? We learn aura from a young age, and the big brothers who teach us it beat us up. We are originally a weak and ugly race, so if we don't want to die, we have to learn how to use aura. They beat us to the point where we wished we were dead, but they were so skillful at beating that we couldn't die. By getting hit over and over, we learned how to use aura. Choosing one of the older brothers and beating them up instead was the process to be recognized as an adult. The goblin warrior looked at the sunset sky. His bright eyes seemed to contain sorrow that couldn't be expressed in words. Even a council member like me can't believe that there is such an ignorant race in the world. But it can't be helped. This is for the best. There is no method more effective at teaching aura than the pain of death. This is the teaching that Kekerker gave to the Apostle Gork over 600 years ago. The warrior murmured. We call this the Sherbal aura training method, modeled after Kekerker's manner of speech. It's really crazy. Behind him, the other goblin warriors all shouted out. Friendship instead of reverence. Trust instead of faith. Sherbal. Shibble. The warrior nodded. The river of our race is deep and wide. There are no gods in this world, just bad friends. So we have to do our best. We have no choice but to do our best. Those who were once bound in chains with us. Stop destroying the snails. Otherwise, you will lose. The plains became silent. I was also silent. But my companions weren't silent. That's the Death King. Definitely the Death King. Death King, why are you over there? When did you grow your teeth and paint your skin green, Death King? Wait a minute. Was there something wrong with my image? Chapter 173. Fight for the Holy Land. 3. Why is it like this? Was this some kind of karma that parents had to bear? If the parents are good, the children will be good, and if the parents are bad, the children will also be bad. Raviol. It would probably be best if we didn't have children. I wasn't sure if I could endure it. Imagining a child that looked like Raviol coming up to me and saying, "Daddy, Sherbal." Huh? Now that I think about it, isn't that kind of cute? Crazy bastard. I really want to know if something is wrong with this bastard's brain. Race status open. While imagining a happy future, I checked on the status of the newly evolved goblins. Plus. Goblin race. Extinction grade, C, slight risk. Proverb, we are fire. Political system, Republican. Description, what the hell is going on? The goblin race suddenly experienced an astonishing evolution. The goblin race has developed a very interesting civilization. It is the Aura civilization. For the goblins, an adult is defined as none other than a person who is capable of using aura. Politicians, artists, warriors. Regardless of their occupation, their success is determined on whether they can use aura or not. As soon as a goblin masters aura, they join the council on the day of the next full moon. The Fire River Council is made up of every adult in the goblin race, and they are the ones who decide what actions the race takes. In the goblin race, everyone uses aura, even ordinary, civilians, and doctors. The ranking of the council is dependent on how skilled they are at using aura. The person who ranks number 1 in the council, or the most proficient aura user in the goblin race, is elected as council chairman. Sherbal Gore. Or in other words, the strongest member of the goblin race. On the nights when the surroundings are quiet and the moon is full, the goblins gather together. The meeting time of the goblins is at night when their ugly appearances can be hidden by the darkness. Intoxicated by the cool night air, the goblins solemnly discuss the fate of their race. Chairman. I don't believe that solution will work no matter what. Shall we fight then? Let's fight. Bring it on. Here I come. Despite all the citizens gathering together to decide, the Fire River Council boasts amazing efficiency. This might be possible because the chairman was the strongest warrior in the entire race. I can't believe there is such an ignorant and battle-hungry race. If this race was created by someone, then I think they need to take some time to reflect. Traits, Republican tradition, bad friend doctrine, method to pass on the Sherbal aura training method, fire painting, legacy of records, reverence towards victory. Evolutions, unknown. There is one chance for evolution left. Aliases, hobgoblin, etc. Plus. Right. I smiled inwardly. Hey. The goblins evolved into hobgoblins. That's great. Zombie. Is that really something you should be happy about right now?
Shh.
*T, how did this happen? I held my head in my hands. I just wanted to help them so that they wouldn't lose fire painting and point greed in a positive direction. I guess the positive direction for them was idolizing your bullying. That's not it. My teaching method was not wrong. Now that I think about it, hundreds of goblins have become aura users, haven't they? It's possible that there are even thousands. That's amazing, isn't it? It's awesome. It's a mistake, but it's a happy mistake. As expected of me. A parent who failed to raise his children properly is still looking for self-justification, crazy bastard. I looked at the goblin's traits. 600 years was a long time. In that time, they had acquired a few traits that I'd never seen before. For example, Republican tradition. Plus. Republican tradition. Category, politics. Origin, fire painting. Description, the goblin race created a republic. This republican system originated from the unique funeral of the goblin race. In the past, when a clan member died, the goblins gathered in an underground cavern and held a meeting. The underground cavern was very dark, which made it impossible to tell one goblin from the other. Although the goblins only held funerals in this way to avoid the surveillance and oppression of the snail race, they unintentionally created a veil of anonymity. In the dark, the goblins could discuss freely. How did this person die? History. Did this person live correctly? Judgment. How should we respond to this death? Morality. Is Kekriker a lion bastard or a dog bastard? Philosophy. As time went by, the goblins began to discuss not just the dead, but also the living. After escaping the underground cave, the meetings were held every evening. Naturally, the issues agreed upon at these meetings were regarded as the consensus of the entire goblin race, and they were later referred to as the council. Unlike other councils, eloquence wasn't so important here. Ugh. Regretfully, it seems that there is a significant difference of opinion between us. If one of us beats up the other, that difference will certainly disappear. That's an excellent solution. Respecting the strong. In a sense, the council was still the place to hold funerals. However, this trait can change depending on how history progresses. Plus. It got mixed up. I was pretty sure that something, somewhere, had gotten mixed up. They respect the strong, but it's not a dictatorship. They have a council, but the rankings are determined by strength instead of eloquence. What the hell? Something's not right with that. Isn't this the result of your teaching? Bei Hurayong clicked his tongue. Their foreign policy also seems to be the same. We will use our fists instead of talking. Or, we'll talk, but we'll use our fists anyway. This is perfect. They are exactly like Kim Zombie. This is what I'm truly like. It said that parents learn who they truly are while raising children. Shock. It seems that I might be more muscle-headed than I thought. The Death King's race is really good at fighting. The Sword Saint looked out at the plains. It's already been the third round, but the goblins have yet to change their fighter. Although the gap in their martial arts ability isn't that large, they seem to be quite proficient at using aura. As the Sword Saint said, the duels continued. The Allied army and the Goblin army both sent out fighters in turn. But until now, it was the goblins, who had yet to change fighters, that were victorious. The Black Dragon Master muttered. You're right. I thought that even if they looked different, they were just goblins. But their use of aura is quite sophisticated. Hoo-hoo. Death King, why are you suddenly doing a shoulder dance? I don't want to see that, so please stop. As the person in charge of your image, it's quite disappointing to see that. The children are doing so well, so my shoulders moved on their own. More than that, Black Dragon Master. Speaking of my look, why do I have to wear this black leather outfit? How should I say this? It makes me look like I have 8th grader syndrome. When I searched on the internet, I found a lot of people criticizing my outfit. It's fine. You look good in leather. Are you sure it's not just because you like it? No way. The Black Dragon Master spoke in a calm manner as if she had no idea what I was talking about. I objectively picked out an outfit that I think suits you. There were absolutely no ulterior motives. My suspicions deepened together with the day. These damned mold bastards. The leaders of the Allied armies grit their teeth. They were filled with shame. They had fought for an entire night, but the results weren't good. For every 4 allied soldiers that die, only 1 goblin dies. A vampire lamented. Since they're the vanguard, I'm sure they picked elite soldiers, but the ratio is severely lopsided. The leaders of the multi-race alliance army were furious. The situation is the same on the snail's side.
Shh.
*T. They basically placed a wall in the middle of the battlefield. Are we going to keep putting up with those molds' tricks? We are on our way to the Holy Land. We are supported by the wills of the gods. Let's ignore those molds and drive the entire army forward for an all-out attack. So you want us to declare an all-out war on the goblins? That's stupid. What? How is it stupid? If we were to give in to our emotions and rush forward, the snails would be the only ones who benefit. Didn't the molds say it already? They are just the vanguard. The chairman of the council, the king of the goblins, is the one leading the main army. According to tradition, the great goblin king is a monster capable of blocking a river and catching fire with his bare hands. If we are attacked by them, we will have no chance. The vampire commander grumbled bitterly. The snails at the front, and the goblins behind. We would be wiped out. Fortunately, the snails are probably facing the same dilemma. So it's a deadlock. Humph. Then what should we do? The sprite commander grit his teeth as he said that. The sprites were the ones who had been enslaved by the snails the longest. So the hatred they had was much more than the others. We pushed all the way to Remepolis and gave up just before capturing it? Don't you all know how much this expedition cost? Should we just return to our countries and say that we couldn't do it? Ridiculous. What would you say to our soldiers who willingly gave their lives and served the people? Are you guys still generals? The other commanders remained silent. The next day was the same. And the day after that too. There were times when goblin soldiers died, but there were usually 3 allied soldiers or snails to accompany them in death. In the end, the goblins achieved their goal of blocking the battle between the allied army and the snails. Finally, on the 4th day. Ugh. Hundreds of goblins sniffed at the same time. The wind smells like mud. In the 4 days that they'd been there, about 100 goblin soldiers died. This group of warriors, which was a bit smaller than before, all turned their heads to look at the horizon. I missed that earthy smell. It's a smell that makes you want to roll your body in it and taste it with your mouth. The smell of guru. Their sense of smell was right. After a while, an army slowly crested the horizon. There were about 3,000 soldiers, all riding on lions. Strange tattoos were engraved not only on the bodies of the warriors, but also on the lions beneath them. Maybe it was because of that, but from a distance, the markings seemed to be moved across their skin like tentacles. Boo! A warrior at the front of the army blew a trumpet. Only then did the allied army and the snail troops garrisoned in Remepolis notice the army on the horizon. An army that was marching towards them with their backs to the sun. Boo! The trumpet sounds continued in a strange manner. First, there were the trumpets made with the shells of snails. Then there were trumpets made from the horn of a sprite. There were trumpets decorated with the skulls of humans, and even trumpets covered with vampire teeth. These were all trophies from the enemies they had defeated in the past. At the head of this large army, atop an enormous white lion, was the leader of the goblin race. Wow! The venomous snake muttered. That's not a great king, that's more like a demon king. Hey, Death King. You somehow managed to create a demon king. Congrats! The leader of the goblin race, the chairman of the Fire River Council, had led his warriors to war. 3. Hello everyone. Thud. In the middle of the battlefield, a battle axe with half the size of a pillar was embedded into the ground. The chairman of the council then put his foot on the beard of the battle axe's blade. The chairman's voice, which was strengthened by aura, shook the heavens and the earth. Living beings that shine like stars in this world. I am the 212th chairman of the Fire River Council, Aburka. His presence overflowed with pride. His body was covered in muscle. On his face, there was a long scar, as if to show that he'd experienced his fair share of battles. The chairman spread his arms wide, which showed off his bulging chest muscles. Today, I have a lot of sherbal to say. But there wasn't a lot of dignity in his words. Not everyone can enjoy the blessings of life, but can't we all enjoy sherbal? Although our 7 races look different, we are comrades who shared the same sherbal. The hunters behind me muttered. What does sherbal mean to the goblins? Since he's using sherbal so much in his sentences? I don't know. I'm guessing it's just a saying. It can mean anything, or it can mean nothing. Death King, your teaching is. I really wanted to see that child that looked like Raviel. No, I just missed Raviel. Children don't matter. We don't need them. As I did my best to escape reality, the chairman continued his speech with increased momentum. That's right. We are comrades. The spirit of my goblin race is embedded in my left pectoral, and my love for my comrades is embedded in the right. Look. My chest muscles burn with spirit and love. That analogy was a bit dubious. It was too much. I couldn't help but feel a bit nauseous as I looked at the bulging green muscles. What the hell was this? It wasn't just his body, even his head was muscular. If an orc was to casually pass by, it would probably look at him and call out, "Big brother." His word choices are a bit. The more I look at him, the more similarities I see to Death King. I'm really not that bad. The Allied army and the snail defenders quietly stared at the chairman from both sides of the battlefield. Despite being enemies, the soldiers from both sides had the same expressions. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy. Nevertheless, I am very sad. The crazy guy made an expression of anguish. Even if the snail race committed unpardonable sins 600 years ago, completely annihilating their races is too great a revenge. It's not right. It's not good. It's not beautiful. You're even fighting here for Remepolis, which you call the Holy Land. But it's not even holy. We have decided that this is a truly ridiculous situation, and hereby declare that we are participating in this war. After the chairman finished speaking, the goblin warriors raised their weapons in the air. Sherbal. 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 Listen up, beings of the 7 races. The leader of the madmen spoke up again. The fact that we were oppressed by the snails is not bad. What can we do to resolve the hatred of our ancestors? The snails aren't bad either. They have no choice but to fight back since they don't want to be destroyed. An eruption arose from the 2 armies. Shouts of "What the hell is this guy saying?" and "Is there really mold in those mold bastards' heads?" could be heard as all of them stared at the chairman with strange gazes. That's right. They're not bad. The words that he said next caused the 2 armies to go silent. The thing that is bad is the Holy Land. All of the soldiers' faces seemed to be saying, "Huh? There are no gods in this world. So there shouldn't be any holy lands either." Nevertheless, everyone seems to have placed their lingering feelings and beliefs into this holy land. You're just pouring your precious, sparkling life into a bottomless pit. Therefore, the Fire River Council has decided as follows. What the hell is he talking about? The leaders of the 2 armies were confused. Not caring about this, The chairman crossed his arms over his chest and continued. We will destroy the Holy Land. The plains became silent. We can't share the Holy Land. It just divides us and forces us to fight each other. So join us. Let's destroy the Holy Land together. If you can't forgive others for having something, then no one should have it. This is common sense. Therefore, we will thoroughly demolish Hermopolis so that no one can occupy it and no one can live in it. Now, my comrades, let us destroy the Holy Land and build a happy world together. Like descendants who followed in the footsteps of their ancestors. I had created a race of nut jobs. Chapter 174. My son is too strong. 1. What do you think about our offer? Comrades. The leader of the goblin race, Aburka, laughed loudly. I think it's the perfect solution. It's so perfect that everyone appears to be at a loss for words. Ugher. I understand. Whenever someone is fixated upon a task, their vision becomes so narrow that they can't think of a proper solution. But luckily for you, we came here to present you with a fresh solution. It was fresh, it was so fresh that it gave everyone who heard it a stomachache. The two opposing groups, the Allied army and the snails, both had expressions as if they had eaten something disgusting. The sprite commander of the Allied army pointed at him and muttered with a dumbfounded expression. Crazy. What the hell is this mold bastard talking about? It's fine. We understand your hesitation. Chairman Aburka nodded solemnly. No matter how perfect a solution might be, it's impossible for everyone to accept it easily. You will feel like you've lost something, and you'll feel like you've given in. Every being hates to lose, or to be precise, every being hates the feeling of losing. You poor things. No. That's why we will defeat you completely and overwhelmingly. The chairman stretched his hand out. Then, a goblin warrior stepped forward and handed him a spear. Aburka closed his eyes and slowly took a ready stance. He opened his eyes. The chairman's arm muscles trembled and swelled. Hup! A beam of light shot forward. That was the only way to describe it. A red beam of light. A spear wrapped in red aura was thrown. No, it was more accurate to say it was fired. Whoosh! A javelin. Aburka's posture was as elegant as an Olympic athlete, but the power of his throw was anything but elegant. Instead, it could only be described as savage and destructive. With a loud cry, the spear fell towards the Allied army. A huge dust cloud appeared in the middle of the Allied camp and the soldiers screamed, but no one was injured. The soldiers had just been bowled over and tossed around, creating a ruckus. But that wasn't the end. Hup! Chairman Aburka lifted another spear. This time, he aimed it at Hermopolis and the snail camp. A red streak of light shot across the plain before hitting the wall of Hermopolis with a loud boom. When the dust cleared, only the quivering tail of the spear could be seen sticking out of the wall. The sprite commander who had pointed at him was as stiff as a log. Dash! The snail soldiers were also dumbfounded. I have been given the title of strongest chairman in the 600-year history of the Fire River Council. Chairman Aburka, who silenced both armies, smiled fiercely, revealing his fangs. In the history of our race, there has never been a goblin stronger than I am. When it comes to military matters, I have no equal. My official record is 260 wins out of 261 fights, and after I became an adult, I have never lost to anyone. Warriors who were born in the same era as me. Lament. Your Shurbal will begin because of my existence. Shurbal. 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 As you can see, the warriors of my goblin race have already been quite considerate towards you. Chairman Aburka folded his arms. When the next full moon rises, the leaders of the Allied army and the representatives of the snail race will gather here. We will come together and hold a meeting. Our goblin race will ensure the safety of both sides. This isn't a proposal, this is a threat. If you don't agree to join us, I will blow you away with a javelin. It was more than just a threat. At that time, there is no guarantee where my spear will go. I don't know, you don't know, and maybe even Kekerker doesn't know. It could hit your gates, or it could blow off the head of your commander. Comrades, please don't force me into the situation I just mentioned. Even I am afraid of my own strength. After saying that, the chairman picked up his axe with an auger. We will continue to accept duels until the night of the full moon. Feel free to jump at us and relieve your anger to your heart's content. If you want, you can even attack with an army. If you're confident that you can bear the losses, of course. Then I heard the tower's voice in my head. The 7 races fear a single warrior. The leader of the race you guide has become a hegemon. Amazing achievement. You have received 900 race points. You currently have 900 race points. My little boy had become so awesome. We roamed around the army camp and collected more information. There was useful information and useless information, but when it came to the goblins, the information we gathered could be summarized into a small phrase. World-class nut jobs. Even I felt the same way. According to what we heard from the chatting soldiers, the goblins usually lived their lives quietly in their territory. But whenever a world crisis occurred, they appeared out of nowhere. 100 years after the Great Escape, it was the goblins who blocked the Snail Empire when it tried to launch a massive war of conquest. Don't races like this only appear in legends? But these were my kids. Hey, I think that guy might be able to fight us if he keeps going at that rate. The venomous snake was looking at the goblin camp from the corner of his eyes. Duels were still occurring on the plains. Aburka didn't participate in any. Instead, he simply watched from the side with his arms folded. However, even with that alone, he gave off enormous pressure. Aura continually bloomed all over his body. It's not just about fighting. If you make a mistake, you might just get beat, you know? I nailed the truth. You heard what he said earlier. He is the strongest warrior in the history of the goblin race. In terms of talent, he is one of the greatest that I've ever seen. He might even have higher potential than us. Hey. We're still guardian gods to them. If we get beat up by the kids, it would be shameful. What's wrong with that? We're not guardian gods because we're stronger than them. You're only that relaxed because it's your race. Aburka. While thinking about that child, I said. In any case, there must be a reason why this period was chosen for this stage. The quest didn't pop up, so we'll have to figure out the conditions for clearing on our own. Perhaps, other than the snail race, another race could be in danger of collapse. The Black Dragon Master nodded. Right. I think so too. It's possible that one or more races are in danger of collapse. Just like the last stage was either the other 6 races or the snail race. Indeed. Maybe at least one race will be eliminated per stage. And the hunters who lead that race will also be eliminated. The Crusader stroked her chin. That makes sense. So which race is the closest to collapse? First of all, it's definitely not the snails. The Count folded her fan. The snails were eliminated from the 32nd floor. It's probably not the goblins. As much as I wish it were. No, that's not true. Crusader. The Crusader tilted her head to the side. What do you mean? It's actually the opposite. I'm guessing that the goblin race is the one that is in danger of collapse. Everyone blinked. The goblins? Those muscle-headed guys? No way. Listen to me first. The Count patted her palm with her folded fan. The goblins will probably achieve the peaceful negotiations that they're aiming for. Not only are they strong, but it would also be difficult for the snails and the allied army to attack them since they would have to pay attention to their opponents as well. However, what about after the agreement has been signed? The Count narrowed her cat-like eyes. Until now, the various races must have been united as one against the snail race. This unity was achieved because they had a common enemy. But after a forced peace negotiation, the common enemy would inevitably change. Think about it. Who would that enemy be? I opened my mouth. The target would shift from the snails to the goblins. I furrowed my eyebrows. The goblins are too strong. The leaders of the various races have no choice but to be wary of them. They would either break up the alliance and acknowledge the supremacy of the goblins, or strengthen their alliance and engage in full-out war with the goblins.
Oh.
You speak my language. The Count smiled gently. I think so too. And unless they are incredibly dumb, it's impossible for the alliance to voluntarily break apart. There's a high probability that they decide something like, the Goblin King is too strong, let's wait till he dies, or something like that. My fellow hunters were lost in thought. The goblin race is definitely strong now. But there is no guarantee that the next generation will be strong, or the generation after that, or the generation after that. Didn't the big musclehead say it before? There has never been a goblin in history as strong as he is. It is much harder to maintain a hegemony than it is to obtain it. Indeed. I knew that at least one race would be eliminated because I'd read the guide before returning. The Count listened to my hint and pointed out that it was the goblins who were in danger this time. Right. These are the colleagues I need. Each one complimented the other. With joy in my heart, I asked, what should I do? Count? That's simple. Death King. Just use a trick to maintain your supremacy. The Count smiled like a cat. It's clear that the goblins don't have very high political power. They have the force, but they don't have the direction. Force without direction is not power, it's violence. I think there are some who want to get their hands on this power. What do you mean? Hugh. Do you remember how the guild leaders treated you at first? The Count tapped my shoulder with the tip of her fan. You were an unprecedented rookie. We could have been afraid of you. We could have been vigilant and wary. But what did we do? I tapped my chin. You used me. Or to be precise, you bought my name for a price. Instead of just cooperating, I asked to be treated like an equal. Right. It was a win-win situation. It's obvious that the goblins have the potential to have great power. So if the other races see that power as beneficial to us, the goblin race will not collapse. Do you have an idea of what to do?
Yeah.
I nodded my head. I have an idea. I taught the goblins how to endure the world. Now, it was time for me to teach them how to give to the world. Purchased dream appearance. 100 points have been deducted. You currently have 800 race points. That night, I immediately used the item I purchased and entered the dreams of Aburka, the goblin chairman. If the peace negotiations were to continue like this, the goblins would be in danger. So I had to let him know that while he might be recognized as a hegemon currently, they could be facing a crisis in the future. Ugh. In his dream, I found Chairman Aburka sitting cross-legged in the middle of a mud pond. It was the lotus position. His posture was perfect, like a monk who had been eating temple rice for a long time. Oh my God! Is he meditating? The river crossing technique. No, this would probably be called the river sitting technique, right? Aburka skillfully used his aura to sit perfectly on the surface of the pond without sinking to the bottom. If Master saw this, a river would probably flow out of her mouth. As I got closer, Aburka suddenly spoke. Who is it? Aburka had his eyes closed. This meant that he'd sense me with nothing but his senses and aura. My muscles are wriggling. I don't feel any hostility from you, but I feel a strange energy. Do you usually use your muscles to detect hostility? Ugh. It's called mind and body as one. When a person is angry, their facial muscles are the first to move. Emotions communicate with your muscles and are transmitted through your muscles. That is what allows me to sense hostility. What the hell? This guy. He didn't only have a talent for martial arts, but also a talent for talking bullsh*t. Aburka. Listen carefully. I am the one you call a bad friend, Kekerker. Ho! Aburka finally opened his eyes. His bright red eyes locked onto my face. You are Kekerker? That's right, chairman of the goblin race. I am the one who helped you escape the primeval forest, and the one who helped you when you want to get out of Remepolis. Interesting. With an ugger, the chairman laughed. According to the story passed down from generation to generation, the old apostle, Gork, also met Kekerker in a dream. He said that he looked like a human and called himself Kekerker. Whenever he met him, he beat him up. Did you also come here to beat me up? No, child. I don't see a need to beat you up. In fact, I'm not even certain whether I could defeat you. Aburka frowned. If not for a duel, then why did you come here? I came to warn you that you might be in danger. Then I told him the Count's reasoning. The reasoning was plausible, and I myself agreed with it, so I was able to talk smoothly. At first, Aburka looked at me with an amused expression, but as my speech progressed, he gradually became more serious. So you're saying that we will be destroyed because we're too strong? Not to the point of extinction. However, it is highly likely that the race will decline. No matter how strong you are, it is not possible to take on 6 races on your own. Indeed. So this is my advice to you, Aburka. Don't blindly force the peace negotiations. You should give the other races some form of benefit as well. In my opinion. Wait. Juck. Aburka raised his left arm. Stop talking. I know that you feel no malice towards me. My chest and arm muscles are calm. If you had said a single lie, your muscles would have wobbled and they would have felt it. What kind of horrific thing was that? Was this ego muscle that surpassed ego sword? However, whether or not I listen to your advice is a different matter. I do not listen to the advice of someone weaker than me. What? In other words, only those who are stronger than others have the right to interfere with them. Chairman Aburka uncrossed his legs and slowly stood up on his feet. Unsurprisingly, his aura output remained perfect and he didn't even waver. As he stood up, there was only a small ripple in the mud pond. Come at me. Aburka gestured with an index finger. If you beat me up, I'll listen to your advice. While I was still speechless because of the sudden change, Aburka took a step forward. If you don't come to me, I will go to you. Wait a minute. Am I not your guardian god? Your eternal friend? Do you want to attack me even though I'm like a father to you? If you are the real Kekrker, then to you, Gork is like your child. Fathers are bound to be paid back for the things they did to their children. Even if you hit me, I won't say anything bad about Kekrker. Crazy. Was this right? Get ready. Man who might be my father. While spitting out a line I never expected to hear, the greatest musclehead of all time rushed towards me. Chapter 175. My son is too strong, too. This is my son. I hurriedly raised the holy sword. There was no time to draw the blade, so I blocked the musclehead's fist with the scabbard. Clang! Our auras clashed fiercely. Ho! I deliberately used the momentum of the clash to move back, widening the distance between Aberka and me. I used this gap as a way to give myself some time. Then, I grabbed the hilt of my sword and took a proper stance. This way I'd be able to properly deal with this musclehead's charges. Good. Very good. Aberka smiled happily. Your muscles look delicate, but they are fairly sturdy. Did you add the weight of your soul to the weight of your body? I only build muscles internally. You rude bastard. Ugger? Internal muscles? What's that? I appear slim on the outside, but my muscles are quite solid. It's a magical muscle-building technique that allows me to keep my shape while increasing the strength of my body limitlessly. Internal muscles is the style of masters, and the style of outwardly growing muscles like yours is nothing but garbage. I didn't expect Kekrker to say things like this. Aberka made a strange expression, and his breathing slowed down for a moment. It was natural for someone's brain to go rigid whenever they encountered something that surpassed their **T limit. It was that very distortion in breathing that I was aiming for. Taut. Kicking off of the ground, I shot towards Aberka. Aberka's red eyes widened. He was much larger than the average goblin. This meant that he had more places I could hit. I swung my sheathed sword around like a club. I'm sorry, child. I'll try not to hit you too hard. Aberka simply smiled. Ugger. He looked down at me, who had reached in front of him in an instant. Then, without dodging or blocking, he watched me slap my sword to his body. Clang. A sound that seemed to defy common sense resounded. What I expected to hear was puk or pock, not clang. My arms were also numb as if I'd just hit a steel wall. Is this stone durability? My body is made up of muscles. Aberka smirked, showing off his fangs. I was born with albinism. It stung to go out in the sun, and I could hardly see because my eyesight was bad. I couldn't even put mud on my body in the scorching sun. I struggled because it was difficult for me to enjoy ordinary pleasures. And that was when I realized. Aberka spread his arms. If I could cover my body with aura, there wouldn't be a problem. Crazy. From that day on, I devoted myself to my aura training. First I practiced by covering my entire body with aura, even if it was only for 1 second. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When I could maintain it for 1 hour, I became an adult. And when I could maintain it for a day, I became the chairman. For me, Aberka, a birth defect is only a minor obstacle. The hobgoblin took a bodybuilder pose, his biceps quivering. Ugh. If I had eaten any greasy food before, my stomach would definitely have been uncomfortable at that moment. I trained my muscles till they burst so that my aura could seep into them. When my muscles tore, my aura helped them regenerate. As a result, aura flowed through the reconstructed muscles more easily. By tearing, and healing my muscles over and over again. By doing so, I succeeded in gaining the ultimate muscles. Dud-ung. Bud-ung. Aburka's left and right pectorals bounced up and down one after the other. It was amazing. The performance in front of my eyes was bombarding my psychological defenses. To be able to inflict damage without even making a move, this guy was at an incredible level of mastery. Now I'm able to control everything, from my smallest muscles to my thickest, at will. Aura muscles. This is the muscle road I recommend. Even his bullsh *T sounded elegant. I don't know why, but no one has followed me yet. Poor things. All you need to do is use your aura with the mindset of restructuring your entire body. Hey, wait a minute. You achieved refinement and rebirth. You really might be my father. This child, perhaps the only goblin in history to gain the title Refined Muscle Head, shouted. You're stronger than I expected. That's great. It's been a long time since I met an opponent who could take one of my blows. So, lift your sword, fight me with all your might. Whoa. I'm not used to being the one who says this. But Aburka. Is fighting all you know? Mind and body. Muscle instincts. Muscle eruption. Rumble. Aburka's muscles began to wriggle like magma which became restless before an eruption. He grew. And grew. And grew some more. Son. Eventually, Aburka became unbelievably huge. This wasn't an exaggeration, he was now the size of a small hill. My entire body was covered by his shadow. He didn't really grow much. It wasn't Aburka's body that grew. Instead, it was Aburka's aura that stretched out from his body to make the giant figure. Like a pilot controlling a giant mech, Aburka's body sat in the chest of the giant. In other words, this figure, which was as large as a hill, was made purely from aura. Hew. Thud, the ground rumbled. Aburka only took a step, but the ground shook in response. I looked at Aburka with a speechless expression. There's no need to get so serious. Can't you go back to being smaller? Daddy is getting a little scared. This is my true form. Giant Mode Aburka spoke in a booming voice. From shoulders to fingertips, there is nothing that is outside of my control. Dream being who calls himself the White Lion. My fist will pierce your chest. Hey. This is a sin against heaven. Fine. Then in the name of victory, I will gladly sin against heaven. Aburka shouted loudly and punched forward. A fist, almost the size of a house, fell towards me, covering me in its shadow. Sherbal aura method? Giant style. Martial art technique. Humiliating fist. It was a name as elegant as a tadpole's eyes. Isn't the name of that martial art too long? The value of a martial art is in its power, not its name. He certainly was right. Aburka had gained profound destructive power in exchange for abandoning his naming sense. Crack. The ground cracked, but the power of the punch didn't end there. It poured down like heavy rain. The ground shattered. And because the hot aura smashed into the ground, a lot of the surrounding soil melted into mud and splattered onto me. In an instant, I became like a mouse that had been covered in muddy water. Hot. With a shriek, I avoided the other waves of mud from Aburka. You brat whose ignorance will shake the world. I didn't raise you guys like this. Quit your bullsh *T, zombie. You didn't raise those kids. While I did evasive maneuvers that made me look like a tap dancer, Bei Hurayung muttered. Like he said, fight with all your might. There are many cases where parent and child fight each other. There are even certain sects and cults that have a tradition of the young eating the old.
Shh.
Asterisk T. I drew my sword. I don't care anymore. You didn't care for a long time. I was proud of my child. I raised my aura. And the image I pictured was of fire. The underground torture chamber in the mansion. A child outstretched their hand, bound by chains and covered in flames. A deep resentment for being young. Fire. My heart became hot in an instant. I embraced the feelings from the scene in that mansion's basement, a tale that would eventually be forgotten if left untold. Then I unfolded those feelings into my aura. My shadow is the shade of that basement. Without being buried by the emotions. My fire is the touch of that child. I didn't need to be obsessed with the form. You and I aren't fire. Fire is the one. Fire that covers and burns the world. Thus, the tip of my sword became the tip of someone's finger, and my blade became their scream. Infernal heaven's demonic art? Reformation. First form. The burning young sword. Burn. Indeed. My aura swayed in the shadow like the head of a snake. The opponent's hand. Even if this was only the hand of a giant that had been summoned. The image in my mind became more solid. Hotter. Stronger. I cut the hand off. Definitely. My opponent resisted. My opponent, whose left hand had been cut off, tried to resist with his right hand. Was he trying to make space to readjust his stance? I struck again. He bent his back to avoid the blow. But as my foot struck the air, the shadows of flame latched onto his right arm. 1 thread. 2 threads. 3 threads. Dozens of aura threads covered the giant's fist. There's no doubt about it. I burned it. It's Kekerker. The giant tried to restore his hands. I'm sure he had more aura. If that was the case, I would just have to cut off my opponent's limbs faster than he could restore them with aura. You have returned to our race after 600 years. I cut the left foot before the left hand could grow. I cut the right foot before the left foot could grow. Then I cut the left arm again before the right foot could grow. I completely cut up the figure of the giant. There is no lack of dignity in your victory. No, that's wrong. I didn't try hard enough to win. I cut it. Amazing. Ugher. Amazing. I can't believe you're not strengthening yourself, but using the reinforcement of others. I buried the giant in that blazing basement. Aura, the fire of the soul, I didn't know it could be used this way. Like burning paper, the giant was consumed by the flames. It grew smaller and smaller. The giant's aura was also red, so it resembled a scene where a large fire devoured a smaller fire. Do they have to be different? As I watched the giant get swallowed by fire, I had a sudden thought. Aberka inflated his arms and legs. He extended them. He used his aura as a tool to expand. On the other hand, I use it to attract the screams of others. The reddish aura burned red. Is there a reason why both things can't be done at the same time? Fireworks went off in my head. I was so focused on converting Master's infernal heaven's demonic art to my infernal heaven's demonic art. But do I really need to attract screams? Can I carry all of the karma by myself and draw all of that resentment on my own? Should I? The fundamentals of aura usage appeared in my head. No. A solution appeared in my mind. Anyone could be fire. I opened my mouth. Aberka. Think about this. Ugher? Should I tell him about the underground mansion? No. Think about the dark underground of Remepolis. I would give him something closer. There, living in one of the many pits dug into the ground, are 13 goblins. There are also young goblins among them. Children who, from the moment they were born, have never seen the sun, never been hit and soaked by the rain, and never been able to cover themselves in mud to their heart's content. Think about those children. I pushed the history of the goblins onto their strongest warrior. They are only given a few fish in the mornings and evenings. That is all they were allowed to eat. The mothers sometimes roast the rare mushroom that they could find, but that is the only change in their diet. Are you thinking about it? I'm thinking. Whenever they cook, the narrow pit gets filled with smoke. The mothers are crying and the children are coughing. But that doesn't mean they can come out. In the distance, the snails monitor them, their tentacles waving in the air. Can you imagine the smoke in the cramped pit, and the soft coughs of the mothers and their children? I can. A young goblin stretches for a fish on the fire that isn't fully cooked yet. I hit the giant's fist with my sword. The mother hits the hand of the child. She grabs his wrist. She already hit him, and yet, the child keeps reaching for the uncooked fish whenever she looks away. Because he is hungry. Whenever his mother blocks him, he bursts into tears. In the end, the mother has no choice but to give the fish to the child as soon as it's cooked. The child eats it quickly. Then he looks at the other grilled fish. He wants more. I hit the giant's fist away, forcing an opening. Then I swung my sword in this opening, reducing the size of the giant a bit more. Think about the child's gaze, the mother's gaze, the child's outstretched hand, the mother's hand that blocks and holds the child's. Draw the path of the smoke in that underground pit. If it's you, I'm sure you can draw it. Ugher. Show me. The giant swung his fist. Copy me. I dodged and deflected it. The direction of the fist changed again. Cry. The giant's stance twisted. You are a race who knew how to sing to the fire in sorrow. Those flames were nothing more than a simple fire, but you were able to read emotions by looking at the angles in which the wind blew it, the speed that it rose at, and the dispersion when it sank. Aura is no different. One character holds the sky. One rhythm sings sorrow. Why can't Aura capture the sky? Why can't you use it to draw sadness? Embed that image in your mind. The giant's stance collapsed. I hit him in the shin and helped him regain his balance. He straightened. The giant's fist flew through the air in what should have been a straight punch. Go ahead. Suddenly, fire burst from the giant's fist. The fire split into 5 tongues. These 5 tongues then separated again, becoming 25. Aberka looked down at his fist with a blank expression. Some of the flames were strong, some were gentle. None of them resembled Aberka's mannerisms. Although it was still at a rudimentary level. This was definitely a punch that resembled the infernal heaven's demonic art. Not bad. You really are supremely talented. I nodded. That's how you do it. Child. Aberka finally opened his mouth. Our father.